So can you actually afford Boulder if you make $250,000 a year? Let's find out. So if your household makes about $250,000 a year, it really depends on where you're coming from if you're going to find that that's enough money. It also depends on what your household looks like. But let's say if you're coming from the Midwest and you're used to $250,000 being a lot of money, great vacations, lots of leftover, good savings, that's one group that's going to find Boulder a little bit challenging. What about if you're looking at a California lifestyle where $250,000 is pretty tight? You're not getting through a lot there. You're maybe cutting corners just to get to your basic expenses. That's a different group of folks moving to Boulder. And then there's also people that they have no idea. They've never purchased before. They've been saving and doing really well, and $250,000 for a couple, we're going to explore that as well. My name is Michael with Lovato Properties, and I spend a lot of time analyzing who's moving to Boulder and how I can help them. I love this community, and I love that you're here to experience it with me. So what happens a lot is folks move here and they realize they're not actually trying to buy a house. So we're not analyzing if that $250K covers your house expenses. They realize that they're trying to buy a lifestyle. And so our question, and where we're going to go today, is does the $250,000 household budget offer you the chance to buy that Boulder lifestyle or not? So as we go into this, we're going to talk a lot about not can I afford Boulder, but should I afford it? And so here's what I mean. We look at this as folks coming here with a nice budget. Maybe we're talking about a two-person household and you've got that money and you want to come to Boulder. One thing that surprises a lot of people when they move here is that that income isn't actually rewarded by way of a bigger house. You take that money and you may find yourself getting a smaller home here in town, but you're diving right into that Boulder lifestyle. With your budget, you're actually buying access to the views, to the walkability, to the community that values being outdoors, to that local homegrown vibe that we really cherish here in town. Maybe even to that entrepreneurship, if that's your flavor. You're going to buy into that Boulder community. So in some senses, stop looking at the house that you can buy and start realizing that your zip code or your neighborhood or your location is what you're paying into. You're getting access to the Boulder community. So that may be a smaller home on paper. So a lot of times folks come here and they pay for that access to Pearl Street, but then they realize they don't really go there, but maybe once a week, if that. So I'll see this. Someone in Florida will compare the dollars for dollars on size. Chicago folks will compare it to a city lifestyle. Maybe Texas folks will compare it to the land that they're allowed to get. And the California people will compare it to a quality of life. So depending on where you're coming from, you really need to focus on that when you look at the dollars for what you get here in Boulder. So let's talk about household number one, the dual income, two people, no kids. When you come here with a $250,000 budget and you look like that, you've got a lot of great opportunity, because as long as you prioritize where that money goes, you're going to live well. I think a lot of folks realize when they come here, you're not spending a lot of money out. You're recreating differently. You're entertaining yourselves differently. You're not going out to the movies, to the shows, to the nightlife as much as another town or another community. When you're in Boulder, you're saving money because you're going to meet up friends for a morning run. You're going to meet up friends for a hike around the lake. All that stuff will save you money, and you're still enjoying what Boulder has to offer. So far, we're winning. Also, I'm going to say this, a lot of times that dual income, two people with no kids, you're able to spend a little bit more to have great access, and you can continue to save for if and when you do add to that family size. So you can afford to be in that area that's super walkable, super easy access to Sanitas, and you can really enjoy that, all of which Boulder has to offer. Two people, you're doing great. Okay, so we're going to change it. In scenario number two and household number two, $250,000, two people, two incomes, but you've now got two kids. If this is your scenario, it changes the equation quite a bit. Now we're focusing on other things. You're going to try and stretch the budget a little bit differently. You're not saving so much now because money is going into kids' activities and shuttling kids around and spending time in the car. So now when you look at this, can I afford Boulder? Well, this is tough. If you're prepared to really chisel down and get to a small living quarters, comfortable but small, so where you're still spending that money to get places and do those fun activities, well, it's going to work just fine. But if you're saying, oh, all of a sudden I can't live in a tiny 1,000 square foot home with 2 kids, we're going to have to expand the search. We're going to have to leave Boulder proper, or at least get to some of those outskirts of town to be able to make that fit. It's doable, but I want you to understand that now suddenly 4 people on that $250,000 budget, you're going to feel a little bit pinched. That's the reality. Now I can say, if you choose as that family to go 20 minutes outside of town and be in Boulder Valley, still have those great BVSD schools to go to, you may consider Erie, where suddenly that $250,000 budget is pretty good. You can get a bigger house, more space, newer finishes, and still have all of that great Boulder County access, all of those great perks. So family number 2 or household number 2 of 4, those 4 people, you may want to consider being a little bit further out, make that dollar stretch a little further. So now I've got a question for you. If you're on this kind of budget, what are you going to prioritize as that number 1 non-negotiable? Is it huge kitchen? Is it super walkable? Is it great space? Or is it just buying into the Boulder vibes? I'd love to know your answer. Put that in the comments and tell me where you're coming from. And here's a cool story. I had a couple that was moving here from a big city. They said, you know what? We want to look at everything that we can afford. So we started doing that. They had a $250,000-ish household income, and they started looking at everything. Suddenly, as soon as they saw things, they realized, you know what? I can afford to be in a lot of different places, but what I really prioritize is being super tight, super local, super close. They wanted the Newlands. They wanted to be really easy to walk to Ideal Market or stroll down to Pearl Street on a summer night, or in the morning be able to run right out the door 2-3 blocks and you're on Mount Sanitas hitting those trails. So that's where they landed. They were happy to give up a few other things, including the size of the house, to make that budget work for their lifestyle. So this is a fun one. What ends up costing more than most people expect? Because the house, people move to Boulder expecting the house itself to cost a lot of money. But what they don't anticipate is all those other spends. And so we're talking trail shoes, skis, maybe 2 or 3 sets of skis. Because when you've got the downhill, you may want to go uphill. So that's a whole nother set of skis. Wait, then your friend says, let's go skate skiing or Nordic skiing. So that's a 3rd set of skis. Whoa, a lot of money going to all those winter hobbies, and they're all fun, so why not? And then there's also, when you get your trail shoes, and those are kind of expensive these days, then your friend says, well, guess what? I'm training for a race in Steamboat, or I'm training for a race down in Crested Butte. So now we've got to budget in that weekend trip, or the training trip to train with your friends and exercise in advance of the event. So suddenly your travel budget is doubled because you're just doing this trail race that your friend invited you to. So those costs start to creep on in. And then there's other things like going out. Well, we have great restaurants here. So you can go out and spend 30, 40, 50 bucks for a couple and have a nice dinner. But also on the other side of that, what if you just want a little bit more upscale? Double, triple, or quadruple that, you're having a great meal for 2, 3, 4, 500 bucks. So you have to budget for that as well. Because it's there, it's on Pearl Street, why not? Easily you can start to creep in those lifestyle budget bumps, and you want to factor that in. Most people don't expect that here in Boulder. And here's another funny little thing that sometimes happens. You move into that ideal house that lets you live the lifestyle and you're cruising along, but suddenly you realize in Boulder, a 1-car garage is really a 0-car garage because it's full of gear. A 2-car is a 1-car. In other words, you've stuffed that 2-car half full of bikes and skis. And then 3-car garage, well, maybe you are fitting 2 cars and all your Boulder toys. I say this because that could result in you spending a little bit of money on an off-site storage unit, because you may be living such a Boulder, Colorado maximized outdoor lifestyle that you have all that gear and no place to put it. So that's something you have to factor in as well. And then this is fun. This may not happen to you, but a lot of folks that live in Boulder or move to Boulder really dive into that local business vibe. So all of a sudden, you're going to spend a little bit more at January coffee than you would at Starbucks. January, it's local, it's homegrown. Costs twice as much as Starbucks, and Starbucks is expensive. Or you may be at Boxcar because you've seen all the awards handed out, or Ozo. great coffee, but you're going to love spending money to support those locals. The same holds true for your favorite taco joint. Maybe it's Pica's, maybe it's Verde, but you're going out spending maybe a little bit more than you would because it's local and you want to support that. That's something that you don't anticipate moving to Boulder, and it sometimes grabs you by the local made socks. Now here's something that's somewhat hidden, and it's where you save money. So now with your $250,000 income, you're actually putting money in the bank. It's because this. Maybe you're driving less. Maybe you're riding your bike, commuting to work a little bit more. Maybe you're just not filling up the car as much with gas. Also, your recreation is different, and some of that recreation is free. It doesn't cost anything to go for a walk around the Boulder Res. It doesn't cost anything to go to Chautauqua and do a nice hike. All of that stuff is free. You may find where before you were spending money on a gym, but now you're just riding your bike. All of that stuff is a little bit of a place to save money, and it's an unknown perk when you move to Boulder. So let's talk about another household. The household that has that amount of money coming in, but they're looking for a second home. So this is unique, and we get this all the time. In fact, I'm working with a couple right now who's trying to make this a second home. They're trying to pull the trigger and make that purchase. And they're running the numbers, and they keep coming back to they need rental income to really make it pencil out. And you can't always rent these homes out in Boulder. This is something that a lot of folks don't know. If you don't have a primary residence purchase, so if you buy it as a second home, you can't apply for a short-term rental license in the city of Boulder. You have to own it as a principal or primary residence before you can get that license. And then some HOAs, some communities don't even allow it. So this is something that you just need to factor in, where it looks like on paper your budget's going to allow you to buy that vacation or that second home. It's maybe not going to make sense on your spreadsheet when you factor in all those details. But getting right into the mix, if you are looking to buy a second home here, I want to first say, what are your top 3 goals? Are you moving here to experience Boulder lifestyle through and through, the convenience, the love, the vacation feel? Then you really need to say, okay, I have to get serious. How much can I really afford? Maybe it's a 1-bedroom condo downtown, but you want to have access to what you want. So make that list of priorities. If it's that lifestyle, put it at the top. If it's just, hey, I just want a place to be, I want more space, I don't care if I can walk out the door because heck, I'm in Boulder, then you've got a lot more to play with. But so is the $250,000 enough to have a second home here? Maybe. That's a big maybe. And I hate maybes, so if you really want to have a better answer, you've got to reach out to me and we can explore that together. So here's the biggest takeaway. $250,000 can feel like a lot of money. It can also feel like a stretch, or it could also feel prohibitive. The answer to which you're going to feel really comes down to what you are striving for. What change do you want? What chapter are you trying to open up in Boulder? That answer is everything. So before you really make that decision, make that list. What do I want? What am I trying to experience when I come to Boulder? This is something that I spend a lot of time thinking about and talking about. If you want some really precise, great guidance as far as can I do what I want, you should reach out, because I have a passion about helping people make that decision and mitigate all the risk that goes along with making the wrong call. I'm Michael with Lovato Properties, and I would love to dive in to help you answer those questions before you even come to Boulder. We can decide if Boulder's right for you or wrong for you before you even buy a plane ticket or make that road trip out here. Reach out. We'll get started right away.
I love it.
Time out. One thing I think you're going to, and it sometimes grabs you by the local made socks. Are socks local made?
I don't know.
Or should that have been an adverb, locally made socks?